Shooter, a book written by Walter Dean Myers, involves the tragic events that unfold when someone is pushed too far. This book really caught my attention by the way things are understood or comprehended. As the book goes on, things get deeper in meaning and in interest, and I really liked that. So in this podcast, I'll tell about what happens and what it reminds me of, what type of writer Myers is and why, and what I thought about everything that happened. In Shooter, a kid named Lynn, who is picked on and pushed around in school and at home, snaps. Lynn was an outsider, a kid who doesn't fit in or isn't established with any groups in school. As his high school years go on, he is pushed around, picked on, and bullied more and more at school and at home. A guy named Brad, the captain of the football team, likes to mess around with Lynn and break him down. Also, Lynn's dad pushes him and his mother at home. As these events unfold, however, Lynn becomes more and more unstable, getting into guns and drugs, as well as violent acts. By the end, things have gone too far and something incorrigible happens. Lynn purchases 2 automatic rifles and a handgun, and plans to write in blood, "Stop the violence" on the school walls. However, things go wrong, and there ends up being a shootout at the school. By the end, several students are injured and 2 are dead, Brad by murder, and Lynn by self-inflicted wound. This book specifically reminds me of the events of Columbine. Students had been pushed too far in school and had reached the breaking point. Too many people are being pushed too far this day and age, and if we fail to see it, we'll fail to stop the consequences. Myers slides this point across through the happenings of this book. Shooter is written in a question and answer format, and the interrogation of the close friends of Lynn. As the events unfold, you can clearly see that Lynn becomes severely unstable. His acts of violence start at defacing a church and increase to shooting turtles and buying illegal weapons. Revenge is clear in his mind, but for a different reason. Lynn wants revenge to teach a lesson of what is happening to him and more people everywhere. His idea of writing "Stop the Violence" in blood is trying to get the point across that he is being pushed too far. It's a warning that he's close to snapping. At the beginning of this book, they're questioning Cameron about Lynn. They ask him some questions about what were the events leading up to April 22nd? These questions indicated that something big had happened on April 22nd, and by the name of the book, Shooter, I determined that someone had been shot. Throughout the book, these interviewers asked Cameron and Carla all about themselves and Lynn, and what they thought about him, as well as how they were friends with him. Cameron describes the incidences where Lynn and him were bullied, picked on, and pushed around. There were several occasions where Brad would confront Lynn and threaten him. Then they started to tell how Lynn had gotten into guns and drugs and forming a group called Ordo Sagittae, meaning Order of the Arrow. When Cameron and Carla described how they would go and shoot at a range with Lynn, they started asking them if they liked shooting and if they liked guns and stuff. I could tell they were trying to determine what was the cause of what happened on April 22nd. Later on, they had Cameron and Carla describe what had happened exactly as the events played out. They came to an end conclusion that this event could not have been prevented by normal means. I felt that if people cared and prevented bullying, and if people would make an effort to correct the life of someone in distress, that this event could have been prevented. Most of all, I can relate to this. Almost everyone has been bullied in school, and almost everyone has problems dealing with it. Sadly, efforts have not been made to change this. As I read and finished this book, I was shocked and amazed at what Myers had written about. I felt he had jumped the barrier on normal writing methods and had taught a valuable lesson through a book. This book made me realize how dangerous it is to mess with someone's head, and physical pain can be mental pain as well. If bullying isn't cracked down on in schools, more events like this will happen. I'm sure of it.